Hey, book community. Well, it's May, and it's time to talk about my May TBR, what I'm going to be reading this month. And I've got several books that I'm excited about reading. In fact, all of the books that I've planned to read, I'm excited about reading. And so let's talk about it. Let's go. So first of all, I'm going to be reading Sealed Empire by Norbert. And I'm not even going to try to say his last name. I'm going to be doing this on my Kindle. Norbert actually reached out to me on Twitter and asked me if I would like to read his book, if I would like a copy of it, and I said sure, absolutely. I don't know when I will be able to get to it, but what I did is I went ahead and I read the prologue, and once I did that, that was it. I said, well, I'm going to be reading this in May, and the reason that is because it starts off really exciting. It starts off in the middle of kind of a chaotic situation. I don't want to give too much away, but it is in the middle of a storm, a ship in the middle of a storm, and a lot of things happening all at once, being thrown at you all at once. And I just want to know what happens. I want to know what happens with the characters that it is introducing to me. And I've already started reading a little bit of it, as I've said. Because I finished a few days early in April with my other books, I went ahead and began reading a few things here and there at the end of April. And this was one of them. And so I'm going to read this in May, and I'm excited to see what happens next. The next book I'm going to be reading in May is The Enemy of God, or Enemy of God by Bernard Cornwell. Now, this is the second book of the Warlord Chronicles. The first book, The Winter King, I've talked about it on here before. I enjoyed it. It was a good book, and I especially enjoyed about the last 100 pages of that particular book. This book has started off, and I am loving it. This was another one I've started off reading a little bit early, right at the last day of April, and I'm excited to see what Bernard Cornwell is going to do with this particular story. I've heard so much good. I haven't heard anything bad about the Warlord Chronicles, and I can already tell it's probably going to be a favorite series of mine, and so I am excited about reading this and going on with this second book. I don't expect there's going to be any second book syndrome here. The next book that I'm going to be reading in May is A Fool's Hope. I read We Are the Dead by Mike Shackle, and it was gripping. It was exciting. It was grimdark. It was gritty. A lot of things I want in a story, in a book, and it had it. And so I began reading The Fool's Hope. I'm about, I say this is May TBR. This is actually end of April TBR and May TBR. Anyway, so I'm actually about 200 pages into A Fool's Hope. Of course, it's a chunker, really. I believe it's close to 600 pages, and already it has hooked me. It has grabbed me. These characters that I enjoyed following in We Are the Dead, they're still they're there, and then there's some more added to it, and so I am excited about moving forward with A Fool's Hope. Mike Shackle has not disappointed me yet, and I don't expect he will. And next up is The Mad Ship by Robin Hobb, the second book. Again, so far, the last three books I've talked about has all been the second book. But anyway, the second book of Live Ship Traders. I read this first in April. I read Ship of Magic first in April, and I agree with everything positive that I've heard about it. It was the characters. Robin Hobb throws all these characters at you, and you feel some way about them. You love them, you hate them, you're interested in them, and you want to see what happens. So that's the way it was for me with Ship of Magic, and I am ready to see what happens with these characters now in Mad Ship. There are some other people here on BookTube who have been interested in some of my thoughts on this, and I don't expect there's going to be negative. I don't expect there's going to be anything that I don't like about it. Now, of course, I haven't read it, so I don't know. But there's a lot of people who I share a lot of opinions with on types of books and things that are in books. And so I expect it's going to be an exciting read and a very good read. I'm ready to get to that. Next for my May TBR is Dark Age by Pierce Brown. Now, Mike from Mike's Book Reviews really turned me on to this series. I started in January, so I've read 4 books from January, February, March, and April, and this will be my 5th book. And then in July, Lightbringer comes out, and I am ready to read that already. But this, they say, is the most grimdark. Of course, the name of the title of the book is Dark Age, but they say it's the most grimdark of all the books so far. But I don't think that's going to really affect me. Of course, I'm reading A Fool's Hope. We Are the Dead, very much grimdark. So I don't think that's going to bother me. I'm very excited to see what happens. I'm not going to give anything away in case you haven't read the prequel books, or the sequel books of the Red Rising series. It doesn't end on the most positive note, dealing with one of the characters. I don't know if you really call it a cliffhanger, so I don't think that's giving anything away, but just some decisions that gets made that I kind of wish another decision would have been made. However, saying that, it didn't diminish my enjoyment of the book at all. I loved the book Iron Gold. I loved it. I loved the split POVs. I loved everything about it. And just because I didn't particularly agree with the decision of one of the characters, that just adds to my enjoyment of it, really. And so I'm ready to pick up and see what's happening in Dark Age. This, I've already put in a request to my wife. I have the paperbacks, which the paperbacks, well, that's got good. It's floppy, isn't it? It's a good thing with our books. So I've already put in a request to my wife saying I want the hardbacks of this series, because it's just become one of my favorite series now, and I think that's going to continue, and I want to have it for a long time to come. So anyway, if you haven't picked up the original trilogy, pick it up. It's great. If you haven't started reading the sequels, pick up Iron Gold. It's wonderful, and I'm excited about getting to this and then finishing the series whenever I'm able to. So that is everything that I have planned that is going to be pretty much in concrete. Several very, very thick books, so it's kind of a shorter TBR. But they're also calling May Mood Read May, or May is the month for mood reads. And so in case I have an opportunity to continue on, which I expect I will, I'll have some time at the end of the month, I'm going to pick up Dark Force Rising, the second book in the Thrawn trilogy. I read the first book last month, and I loved it. It was a comfort read for me. It was refreshing. It was a wonderful experience to read in that. I've never read any Star Wars books up to this point, and it was good to return to that world, and I'm excited about hopefully getting to read this. So I would definitely be reading this either at the end of May or the beginning of June. I'll do it one of those two. But anyway, this is my month. A look into my month, what I hope to be reading. Of course, things can change. I may have a mood that I want to read something else, that I want to pick up something else, and I give myself the liberty to do that. But if everything goes as planned, this is what I will read, and I look forward to giving you updates this month and to tell you how it went for me. So what are you reading? What's your plans for May? I love watching other people's TBRs, videos. So what are you planning on reading? Do you have some great reads in store for this month? Thank you for tuning in. But until next time, go read books.